Hi, everybody. Welcome back to For Starters. Today, we want to talk about something that's been in the press a lot lately, which is how quickly AI is going to be replacing workers and how we might think about that both in terms of preparing large organizations and also making venture investments in the space. I want to start by saying I think that there is a lot of variation in terms of how severe the job replacement is likely to be. Some people think it's going to be the apocalypse in the workforce, and other folks think that there's going to be a utopian setup where AI is just giving everybody the cape to be their own super person. I tend to think it's going to be among the more severe versions of this. And I want to say at the outset, I don't really believe, just like almost anything in the technology world, that AI is either inherently good or inherently bad. But I think we really have to be thoughtful about its purpose. AI for the purpose of what? And AI set up in what frameworks that actually help us move towards the better versions of that future than the ones that are a little bit scarier. But I think it's very hard to put this genie back in the box. And I do think that particularly as AI crosses over with robotics, there are going to be very few areas in humanity's experience for work that are going to be quote unquote safe. I think once we have robots and AI, everything from picking fruit to serving on panels, writing op-eds to working in factories is not going to look anything like it did before and not require nearly as many people. So the question is whether this is something that is something we can't do anything about, and also is it something that we can prepare for better and invest in, and hopefully see some benefits for society. I was turned on to this initially with an article. Well, first of all, something we've been talking about for a long time, but there was an article just a few weeks ago in the New York Times that mentioned that LinkedIn is already seeing a drop-off in entry-level positions. And it's that particular angle I want to focus on today, because that will generate two really serious problems. The first is we continue to graduate people from various institutions of higher learning, high school, community colleges, and of course, four-year universities, into the expectation that they will have a job. And that expectation may be waning, and it may be much harder, even though also we're doing less to help people with student debt these days. And so that's a big mismatch in the way we're setting up our society. But also it means that organizations that want to have seasoned senior leaders are going to have a gap, because you do need to grow those folks somewhere and give them skills. And so if you have a series or a generation where there's very few entry-level folks, how do you then get the decision makers who one would hope would still be making some human-centered decisions in these organizations? That's a very interesting set of problems. I also do think, it merits saying this before we dive in, that the pace of this is a question mark. We recently saw a Gartner report that said that a lot of these companies that are executing human replacement strategies, as they call them, are going to start backtracking on that in a couple of years. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think if we were to click out to a 5 or 10 year aperture, I think it's almost certain that these effects are going to happen, particularly as I mentioned when AI and robotics cross. I think it's very hard to see how we will not have a lot of replacement. And so hard to say if that's a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but it's coming. And even if there may be some backtracking, I think it's going to go in that direction. So what do we do? So a few things. First of all, I think we have to start thinking about how we provide frameworks for AI to enhance people, not replace people. And we already see that. I mean, I use AI from time to time during my day, but I know a lot of people who are very reliant on it. They're still working, but they're made much more efficient. That is the kind of utopian view of this. That's what a lot of the AI proponents say is going to happen. But I don't think we can just hope for that to happen, because there's also, it's even entered my mind, wow, this is a pretty good research analyst. Like, maybe we don't need to hire the incremental person. So even in my firm, we think about this in these ways. And so we need to start thinking about putting some rules around enhancement. And some of that's going to come from regulation and from government. Other things, though, are going to be about whether companies fundamentally want to maintain a people-oriented culture and maintain a connection to their customers, to their communities, et cetera, by employing people. And therefore, when they're making purchasing decisions about AI products, they're going to want to keep those enhancing features and maybe not just focus on replacement features. I also think we're going to have to focus a lot on training. And some of that training is going to be mentorship and a deep connection between people. And some of it will be software or even AI that is helping train people for management in an environment where they may not be serving in entry-level positions the way that they were before. If you're going to be a managing director at a bank, but it's very hard to be an analyst at that bank, Well, how do you end up developing the skills to be a managing director? And we're going to have to rethink the entire way that happens: scenario planning, virtual training, et cetera, as well as one-on-one mentorship and management. So if there's going to be a pipeline for seniority, how does that happen when we're taking the heart out of entry-level positions? I also think that this means that we're going to be looking at refactoring what training means in organizations. So the analyst class at a bank or a law firm, et cetera, or frankly, the apprentice group in a factory, those are going to be things that we need to rethink. Is it going to be more virtual environments and training, while actually the work in the factory around the cost of goods is going to be done by a more cost-effective AI or robotic replacement? I think these are really interesting questions to ask. Last but not least, though, none of this means that we're going to have jobs for everybody who's going to be put out of work by this stuff. I think it's important that we sit with that truth, because we are racing forward in efficiency gains from AI and robotics, and I just don't think that it's going to be necessary to have everyone working in the way that people did in prior generations. Is all lost? No, we've made some investments in our firm in the creator economy, and there is a thread of argument that says, if you go back to John Maynard Keynes and original thinking in terms of a lot of the capitalist economy, that there would come a time where things would be efficient enough where you would actually get leisure. And leisure can sometimes be even paid leisure, but maybe what you're producing is content that other people find interesting. It's art, it's music, it's connection, it's discussions. And so I think the creator economy is really important, but there's infrastructure, there's really hard work we have to do to make that creator economy something that is livable and that creates upward mobility for people, just in the way that factory jobs might have in the past. And so that involves a financial backbone to the creator economy, the ability to have things like pensions and 401ks. Obviously, they're not going to look like they did at General Motors, but we do have to have a way to promote good financial thinking, promote things like health insurance, portable benefits, et cetera, for folks in an entirely new economy where they don't work for an organization that is providing all those things. And we can discuss someday whether or not it was a good idea for companies to be providing all those things for people. Maybe we shouldn't have turned over pensions and healthcare to companies, but we did. And so now we have to think about what that looks like for the creator economy. And the good news is there's a lot of ways to invest in that, to create and build in that. So I just want to again land on the fact that we're in the middle of a fundamental change, and we've been through revolutions in industry before. One of the things I frequently say is we've come out generally okay from those revolutions, but there's always been losers and winners, and that's always concentrated the benefits, at least initially, in very few hands. We are not very good at distributing the benefits of new technology. We need to be ever more conscious of that here, do some of the things we've talked about in this video today, because if we don't, the severity, rapidity, and the power of AI plus robotics is like no other revolution humanity's ever seen. So let's make that the best version of that and make sure we can benefit from it by preparing for it, investing in it, and ensuring that we have a floor below which we don't let people fall. Because if we don't do that, the consequences could be very severe. So I'm an optimist. I think we can get there, but we all need to work on that together.